mister. Rock Coluna de Fla, Flamengo is having the best group stage campaign since 22. In 2022, it was the best campaign in the club's history in the Libertadores, right? That Flamengo had. How much does that mean to you? Yeah, after 3-4 seasons, you're managing to repeat the feat from a season that also ended in a title. How do you view Flamengo's group stage performance?
If I can say this statistically from those records I keep, what I found was that the best campaign was in '84. Because they won the group and finished first overall, still with 2 points per game, right? The second best campaign was in 22. They ended up winning the group, but they didn't finish first overall. And if the opponents don't win by 4 or 5 tomorrow or the day after, I don't know exactly when, then we'll have the best campaign in the group and the best campaign overall, which might be the best campaign in the club's history. But I'm not sure. We have to wait for the results, and this is the information I got from the report.
Jardim, good evening. This is Emanuele Ribeiro from GE Globo. I would like you to give an analysis of the game.
To us, it seemed that in the first half, Flamengo, despite dominating and facing little risk, didn't have much sense of urgency. They were just waiting for the goal to happen at any moment.
And in the second half, when you made the changes, we saw a completely different rhythm.
Those last 15 minutes of the game, after the 28-30 minutes of the second half, Flamengo was pressing hard and getting the result, creating the goals, right?
What do you think changed from the first to the second half? Thank you.
First of all, I think that soccer is a game that we play depending on the opponent. We created some chances in the first half, but we weren't able to finish. We definitely had some important players on the bench. And in the second half, with the opponents slowing down, getting more tired, and us bringing on some important players, we managed to have a different impact on the game. In the first phase, up until the water break, in a one-striker setup. After the water break, I switched to a two-forward structure.
And then we had even more people inside the box, more people in the finishing area.
The opponent stopped reacting and couldn't even cross into my half. That's why we ended up having control. Just like we did in the first half, we had control, but we had it as athletes. Much greater presence in the box because we had the fullbacks going forward, we had the wingers, we had the strike partnership, Pedro and BH, and Paquetá coming up. And that's when we created, but with more impact.
But the first half wasn't bad. In the first half, we had control of the game. We dominated. We created some chances where we could have scored. We also took the opportunity to give some minutes to some players who have played less, because you know what's going to happen on Saturday. We only have 13 players, and I didn't want them to go into Saturday's game without any game time.
All good, good evening. Okay, Gabriel, Alpha, Orphan, Paparazzo channel from Grêmio, Rubro Negro. Jardim, I wanted to ask you about a specific player, namely Plata. We don't have access, of course, to the GPS data, but if he wasn't the one who ran the most, he was one of the players who ran the most today, important in attack and defense. In my view, he was the best in the match, even with Bruno's 2 goals. Could you discuss how this player has improved under your leadership and his current importance to your team? Thank you.
Plata is a player who, as you know, had a difficult adjustment and then settled in well. To whom do the team's ideas belong in terms of behavior, attitude, training, and the ability to be rigorous? Unfortunately, he had a knee problem which kept him out for almost a week and a half.
As I said before the Palmeiras match, he kept training nonstop. He was still training on a restricted basis, but with a lot of pain in his knee. He's a national team player who doesn't want to play with knee pain, but he always explained that he sacrificed for the team, came on in the second half, and did his best.
After more than 3 days since that game, he has managed to recover and is now fully available to play. And this should also be valued because besides being an intense player, he's someone who is committed to the team spirit. And he tried to help, even though he didn't have a national team game or wasn't going to the national team, he still made sure to give his best. He wasn't concerned about possibly missing the national team. He just gave his best, which is what matters to me. And it's a change in attitude that makes me extremely satisfied.
Good evening, Jardim. Pedro Castanha. Rubro Negro. In the Zona Rubro Negra, it's Arena Flavio. Fla, even talking about the first half situation, even the substitutions. As has already been said, today Flamengo made a lot of technical mistakes with passing ball control. I wanted you to tell us why. In your assessment, did this happen too much today? In that sense, do you think Flamengo needs to strengthen the squad to improve some specific positions? You don't need to say which ones, but some positions. It's clear that Flamengo needs to take a step up in quality to become even stronger for the second half of the season. Thank you.
For sure, Flamengo is a team that always looks to expand its roster in every transfer window to improve, right? I wouldn't say it's about specific players, but rather about the characteristics that I think are important to play for Flamengo. Technique. Because we're a team that controls the game and has speed, and I think physical freshness too. Health, physical health. These are three important elements. We know about the wear and tear of the league season.
In technical terms, we definitely ended up creating some situations. I think the finishing wasn't the best.
But for sure, sometimes they want to do it. They go, but the shot doesn't hit, the pass disconnects, they wait too long to make the pass, they mistime the pass. Sometimes you need to use 2 touches instead of just 1. It's the little details that don't, for sure, with more space in the second half, we were much better. Jardim here.
Jardim here. Good evening, Literal News. Already looking ahead to Saturday's game, you should have at least 10 backups. I believe it's a very complicated task for the coach, even though Flamengo's squad is very strong. How are you looking ahead to the game against Curitiba? For them, it's a head-to-head matchup. If they win, they take points from Flamengo in the standings, and Flamengo needs to go after this, needs to fight for the lead against Palmeiras. Based on what we saw today, considering some of the players who will be on the field, is it possible to minimize these mistakes, which were even mentioned in the previous question, for Saturday's game? Thank you.
Regarding the next game on Saturday, Curitiba is a team that has performed well since the beginning of the championship, and that's why they're at the top of the standings. They are a very well-coached team, but at home, regardless of who plays, we have to be the better team. We will definitely check carefully which players are available. Available not only to Flamengo on paper, but also physically available, so we can start with the best team and still have 2 or 3 options on the bench to come in. We will also take advantage of the academy. We already have 5 or 6 under 20 players who will start training with us tomorrow, so we can bring them into the game. In case we need some options, which due to the circumstances and because of Jorginho's injury, we don't have.
Good evening, Jardim. Jorginho,
Jorginho, you're going to have a very rare opportunity in Brazilian football in the middle of the season, a whole month, to be able to train the team. I wanted to know, like, seeing the way Flamengo is playing, what do you intend to change with this month of training? And how much will it affect you, the 9 players who were called up and won't be in these training sessions? Thank you. Well, regarding the time we will have during this break in the championship, that's not really the issue. If I were the coach of Curitiba, this time would definitely be advantageous because I would have the players there. And right now I have maybe half the squad. The other players who are the national team players who are important for us won't be with us. And then I don't know in what condition we'll get them, or even if we'll get them, and when we'll get them. These 2 variables are important, in what condition and when. Because I don't know. The breaks it's something that's legal. I don't know how far they'll go in the championships. All of that, we still can't make any predictions about the future because we don't know. What we do know is who will stay here. And suppose that in June they bring me a few more players. We'll take the opportunity to have a few more to work with. During this period, what's important is mainly to continue developing some ideas. To maintain our competitive rhythm, we'll play some training matches and take a look at the youth team. I haven't given the academy enough attention. I'm behind because I haven't had time, right? Because, you know, I like to take a really close look at the academy, and I didn't have that possibility because we play every 3 days, and the kids are also playing in between championships.
Planeamento em relação à utilização do guarda-redes já estava feito antes dos últimos 3 jogos. Logo que fizemos a rubrica do jogo dos Estudiantes, já tínhamos decidido que
The one who was going to play was Andrew. This match, regarding the analysis, I even thought about not doing too much analysis. I went over everything at the beginning of the game. There aren't many changes for this game.
só o Saul e o André que não estão habituados a jogar esta competição, porque
All the other players have already played in this condition 2, 3, 4 times this year. That's why this Libertadores group stage is more or less a restart for these players, since they were on the bench.
estes jogadores que iniciaram e com certeza com mais 2 ou 3 daqueles que estavam no banco.
Jardim, good evening. Marcos Gabriel from Rádio Brasil Itália. I wanted to ask the following. As you mentioned earlier, Flamengo could finish with the best record in the Libertadores group stage. And I wanted you to talk a little about the importance of that. How important do you think it is to be able to decide every tie at home? Or if you think that doesn't make a difference throughout the competition, what matters is the final result?
No, it's not like that, no. If you don't know that in soccer we focus a lot on the final result, when it matters, right? When it matters, when it doesn't matter, we don't look just like you're doing now. The best campaign was in 22, the other was in 84. It's only fair to put that on the record, and that's what the players say. It's not a title, but for sure, whenever there's a group stage campaign, it will be remembered. The best campaign was maybe in the year 2026 by this group of players. That's it. That's all. It's not a result that gives us a title or a trophy, but it's always a milestone in a campaign that's among the best. If not the best, it's among the best in the club's history. That's all.
Jardim, Vitor Nicolau, good evening. Congratulations on qualifying.
Insisting on the first half's game plan, Cusco seemed to defend in a 4-1-4-1 formation, blocking the sides of the field well, and the game plan seemed to focus on Emerson Royal, with the main point there on Plata, with the winger on the other side as well. And then, on the right side, I thought about that space between the lines. There was only their defensive midfielder, and it ended up being occupied by De La Cruz and Luis Araujo, who at times seemed to occupy the same space, area of the field, and Bruno Henrique, as the most advanced player, didn't drop back to play with his back to goal or anything like that. Did you miss that play through the middle with his back to goal in the first half until you made the changes and Pedro changed the game with that movement of his?
No, it was an adjustment I made. At the first water break, to Nito and Araujo, I called both of them and said, "You're both occupying the same space, and I want both of you to be between the lines, but rather one more on the wing. One on the wing to support Royal, and the second more inside to support BH." Otherwise, we were left only with BH and the two center backs, and Nito and Araujo often ended up sticking to the wing with Royal. We would keep possession there with 3 players, but then in terms of getting into the box, it was limited. We addressed that concern and made corrections during the water break, and of course afterwards we took advantage of Pernambuco's situation. Pedro that worked more between the lines, and we took better advantage of it after the second water break. With Pedro and BH, one drops short while the other attacks the space, alternating roles. And also with the opponent's fatigue, they weren't even pressing anymore, they weren't moving back, so they had a lot of trouble. And that's why, I always say, strategy is an important thing in football, but fatigue, the difference between one team and the other, is very important. And I think that for sure we improved tactically, because I thought the game called for different options. And when you have options on the bench to do that, everything is easier. I was joking with my assistants when the game ended, he and then the bench, where you have Pedro, you've got Eric, and you have solutions. Everything is much easier because he does what's needed.
Hey, how are you, Leo? Congratulations on the victory on the great campaign, David Sharp, and from Antenado da Jogada. We got information today that Jorge Jesus will come here to Maracanã next Saturday. And we know the importance of Jorge Jesus for Flamengo, for Brazilian football, for what he won and how he won, right, in 2019 and 2020. And we have these coincidences. Best campaign now, Flamengo in the group stage. In 2022, there was also a very similar campaign. I think it was identical, with 5 wins and a draw. But at that time, the coach, also Portuguese, Paulo Sousa, was under a lot of pressure because of relationship issues, which is very different from your situation now, right? You have a good relationship with the group, we know that. But how do you see this shadow, so to speak, of Jorge Jesus, who is available again, and there are already fans asking for him because of that emotional memory? How do you see this?
At this moment, honestly, I'm going to be extremely honest. First, Jorge is someone I have a good relationship with. I'm glad I know he's going because he already told me. We've already invited him to go to Ninho with us for lunch. Then the situation is like this. At my age, I don't see ghosts in football anymore, thank God. I don't see ghosts anymore because I know what happens when we succeed at the club. We become targets. If you go tell Adele Hall that the last Champions League winner was me in 2021, the fans will want me, or not in Monaco. In the last 40 years, I was the only champion. That happens too. It's the same situation too. And I'm a person who's very detached from that kind of stress. In soccer, we have a contract, and when the coach, the president, or the management wants to change things, there's no stress at all. Yeah, soccer is such a simple thing that it's not worth creating problems or imagining situations that might happen. I live soccer day by day. I try to do my best. But for sure, sometimes there are things that have to happen and will happen, and it's not because I'm wasting time thinking about it that they'll stop happening to me. That's why I'm very calm with Jorge, with any other soccer coach. When I'm no longer what Flamengo needs, I'll leave the same way I came in. I feel much calmer, but that question isn't for me. It has to be for those who run the club, not for me. For me, I'm a very calm person when it comes to what I do. I feel better, much better, in all the clubs I've worked at. I always try to strive for the greatest success possible. I try to be professional. I try to give my best. From there, I already know about clubs. Flavio, I give you results. I know how clubs work because I wanted to understand them, and I've been through it before because I had bad results. And the time I had bad results was in Monaco in 2018. The president is one of my best friends. And I told him, man, it's better if you let me go with this team. I can't handle the job. So I think that's more external stuff, media, all those things, blogs, all that. Personally, that doesn't affect me. I'm glad that Ricardo took the time to visit and spend a little time with us because sometimes we've been working. He was in Asia, he was in Brazil, he was in Europe. We've been to several different places and we've had the chance to chat and talk a little.
Good evening, Mr. Jardim. Nice job on the Flavio Gentes channel.
I wanted to go back a bit to the Palmeiras game. I don't know if you saw the reaction to the choices you made, especially after Carrascal was sent off. If you took a look and saw that the evaluation of the choices you made in terms of substitutions was mostly negative, will you reflect on it going forward if a similar situation happens? If you would make different decisions, maybe protect the team a little more. How, a few days later, do you see this situation?
Well, first of all, for sure there will be criticism. There should be, because losing is a terrible result, And the supporter is totally responsible, as I said here in the conference. Secondly, I don't have time to look at either criticism or praise. Honestly, I don't have time. After finishing the game, I go home, sleep, and the next morning I have to be there to plan, check who's available, track, and take notes. Time at home, let alone to be watching the news, social media. Honestly, I don't have time. And I also think it's important to act on the information I have. And so, what I think is that my staff should also be critical about what we do. Normally we don't get everything right and we have to be critical, even within BAD, about what we do. But thank God I have the wisdom not to let what's outside come into my house.
Here I have a friend with a very similar story, which goes like this.
It can't be my neighbor.
Saying what my wife is like?
Man, if I'm with my wife every day, it's not my neighbor who's going to say what my son is like. If I'm at home with them, I have to be the one to know what my family is like, not the neighbor. Sometimes in soccer, it's like the neighbor talking inside our house without really knowing what's going on. That's why I have a lot of respect, because soccer it's a sport of passions, of trends, of ups and downs. But even in terms of praise, also the compliments, I'm not really into that. Either way, I know that when we win, we'll be praised. When we lose, we'll be criticized. There's no point in thinking otherwise. This happens in Brazil, and it's very strong. Just like it happens in Asia, like it happens in Europe, like it happens in Portugal, it happens everywhere in the world. Thank you all. Thank you very much.